Hi ma'am, hi classmates. My name is Stephanie Ann I. Inolino, and I will be the one to discuss the risk analysis in capital budgeting and the capital rationing. So let's begin with the risk analysis. So bakit nga ba nag-exist yung risk sa capital budgeting? Some of the reasons is because of the inability of the decision maker to make the perfect forecast. That's why meron tayong tinatawag na risk analysis sa capital budgeting. So bakit nga ba importante ang risk analysis sa capital budgeting process? Well, it is because managers need the appropriate data to make decisions on the current and future assets of the organization so that they could ensure that the company is not overwhelmed by bad decisions. So in this case, the managers could use the risk analysis as a tool to mitigate the risk in capital budgeting. So what are the types and sources of risk in capital budgeting? In my report, I have listed 6 risks. So the number 1 is the project-specific risk. Second is the company-specific risk. Third is the industry-specific risk. Fourth is the market risk. Fifth is the competition risk. And lastly, the international risk. So let's start with the project-specific risk. For example, ito is the managerial deficiencies or error in estimation of cash flows that could lead to a situation wherein mas mababa yung actual cash flows natin na na-realized kesa sa projected cash flows. Then, second is the company-specific risk. Dito naman, ang example dito is changes in key managerial persons like nagpalit tayo ng area financial controller or finance managers. Yun. So, third is the industry-specific risk. So, dito naman, examples dito is regulatory restrictions imposed in hotel industry, breweries industry. So, yun. Then, fourth is the market risk. Examples of these are inflations, changes in interest rates, or changing general economic conditions that could affect all firms and all industries. So, the fifth one is the competition risk. Dito naman is mga unanticipated actions of a firm's competitors. Mostly dito, nagkukumpit sila sa mga prices ng mga products nila. Then, last one is the international risk. Dito naman, usually, these are faced by firms na yung business nila is engaged in exports or those who procure their raw materials outside the country. So there are many approaches used in analyzing the risk in capital budgeting. And one of it is the risk-adjusted discount rate or the RADR. This method is used by financial analysts to discount a firm's cash flows to their present value and determine the risk that investors should accept for a particular investment. So dito, ang ginagawa nila is nire-reflect lahat ng possible risks na ma-encounter ng project by adjusting the discount rate. So another approach is the certainty equivalent approach. This method is all about the return or cash that an investor is willing to accept today than the higher but uncertain return in the future. So examples dito is stocks market. Because of this pandemic, bumaba yung price ng stocks natin sa market. So kung ako yung stock owners, willing ba akong i-accept ngayon or shall I wait na bumalik sa dati yung economy natin at bumalik sa dati yung price ng stocks na binibenta ko. So, syempre, hindi natin alam kung kailan siya magiging okay ulit because of this pandemic. So another approach used is the probability distribution approach. So example dito is kapag tinos mo yung coins ng 2 beses, ano yung probability na makukuha mo yung results na 2 heads? Or isang beses mo lang makukuha is yung head, then isa yung tail. So yun yung mga approaches ng probability. Another approach used is the sensitivity analysis. So, in an auditor's point of view, kapag for example nagkamali yung cashier at ginamitan natin siya ng sensitivity analysis, so tinitignan natin kung bakit nagkamali yung cashier. Ano yung mga impact or ano yung mga dahilan kung bakit siya nagkamali. Possible dito is hindi siya na-train, hindi siya na-orient, or nagkamali siya pero hindi natin na-correct. So, yun yung mga pwede nating gawin kapag gumamit tayo ng sensitivity analysis. Another approach is the simulation analysis. So, in this method, it is more involved in the use of mathematical, statistical, and other analytical procedures to investigate the performance of the business process. So, example dito is having a Model 1 setup with scenario A and B, and the Model 2 setup with scenario C and D. So, yun yung mga examples ng simulation analysis. So, another approach is the decision tree approach. Dito naman is gumagawa tayo ng sequential decisions by putting the alternatives and the possible consequences into a diagram like this. So our next topic is the capital rationing. So anong ibig sabihin ng capital rationing? Ang ibig sabihin nito is naglalagay tayo ng restrictions sa amount ng new investment or projects undertaken by a company. Sa hard capital rationing, example dito is a company is restricted from borrowing money to the banks to finance new projects because nagsuffered sila ng downgrade in their credit ratings. While soft capital rationing, those are freely chosen to impose by the company, yung restrictions. Sa hard capital rationing kasi is beyond their control ng company. So, dito sa soft capital rationing, chinus talaga nila na mag-impose ng restrictions sa amount na ina-undertake ng company sa new investments or projects nila. So what are the steps involved in capital rationing? So first is ranking the projects according to the profitability index or the PI or the net present value method. Lastly is the selecting projects in descending order of profitability until the funds are exhausted. So there are various approaches to capital rationing. First is the payback period, the IRR approaches, and lastly is the NPV or the net present value approaches. So in payback period, this determines how long it would take a company to sit enough in cash flows to recover the original investments. Then the IRR approach, which is the expected return on a project if the rate is higher than the cost of capital. Then lastly is the NPV approach, which shows how profitable a project will be versus the alternatives and is perhaps the most effective of the three methods.